Has the US finally revealed the truth about the Nord Stream pipeline disaster? And was almost everyone else wrong about it? I'm Paul, US Army combat veteran. Hit that subscribe button and let's crack into it. So, this is wild because in Italy, a Ukrainian man was arrested over the Nord Stream pipeline blasts. Now, for those of you that don't remember this particular event, this was a key pipeline feeding natural gas to from Russia to Europe. And technically, the attack, which at first people thought might have been an accident, just sort of a pipeline disruption due to seismic activity or something, quickly became identified as being likely an act of sabotage. And this was, again, because they detected a seismic reading commensurate with a bomb blast at the pipeline, and it produced a ton of methane. Even though the pipeline wasn't open, it was supposed to be open. And there was a lot of finger pointing, right? It was also kind of an environmental disaster, pumping a bunch of methane into the atmosphere, which is, not great. But there were investigations by Sweden, Denmark, Germany, Poland, the Netherlands, Russia, and a huge number of speculations about the origin, right? So, Russia, so European security officials thought it was the Russian Navy because they had ships nearby. The head of Germany's Federal Intelligence Service thought that Russia had sabotaged the pipelines to justify their halting of gas supplies prior to the explosion. Right. Finland's public broadcast company said it was done by remote military charges. And right, Washington Post said that there was no conclusive evidence that Russia was behind the attack, and that European and U.S. officials privately said Russia wasn't to blame. Right, but then Danish Defense Command said that it was a Russian operation, right? Russian Navy vessels. There's a ton, right? There's also, of course, Ukrainians using a 50-foot sailing yacht called the Andromeda that was a false flag operation. Right? Of course, the Russia claimed that the CIA was involved, then claimed that MI6 was involved. Right? Of course, several international media outlets reported a pro-Ukrainian group may have carried out the attack using the Andromeda, again, a civilian yacht. But this is there's also been speculation by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Seymour Hersh, who allegedly had some inside source that said it was totally highly trained, top secret U.S. Navy divers operating under the cover of a joint naval exercise. So everybody and their brother had a theory, but what is the truth? The truth is Ukrainian intelligence. That's at least what the German prosecutors are saying, telling police arrested a Ukrainian man suspected of coordinating the attacks. Right? The suspect, identified only as Serhei K, under German privacy laws, extradited to Germany. And reportedly, he and his accomplices, which a really small group is actually who conducted this. I think it's less than 10 people on this chartered vessel, right? He and his accomplices set off from Rostock on Germany's northeast coast on a yacht carrying the attack. The vessels had been rented from a German company with the help of forged identity documents via middlemen. Right, authorities got a European arrest warrant for the subject, who reportedly was a coordinator. Right, that the entire attack was just 2 divers, 2 assistants, a captain, and a medic. Investigators have been tight-lipped and said they found traces of undersea explosives on the yacht that was searched as part of this probe. So, again, to me, what is most interesting is the takeaway, is that you find out, one, who was incorrect, who said nothing, and who was absolutely correct. What I also find kind of interesting, this is extremely civilian diving gear. So, kind of a fascinating picture, right? But again, I think a lot of these pipes are not actually as deep as you might think. But to me, the story is less about one, worth noting is that when you have Ukrainian nationals operating as a pro-Ukrainian group in an entirely civilian capacity, often that's code for, hey, these people are operating at the behest of a government intelligence, just like the individuals charged with attacking um, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's residence and house were found to be just regular civilians with both Russian and Ukrainian passports, but even a cursory investigation revealed that they were working on behalf of Russian intelligence. That's the plausible deniability that intelligence agencies love to have. And so, but I think what's most interesting is that you can see who got it right, who didn't want to say anything, and who was willing to lie about it. And again, early on, some people aren't really going to know, but you notice that the Washington Post and Der Spiegel seemed to be able to identify there was Ukrainian Special Operations Forces. Right. But you could see again that Russia saying we have definitive evidence that it was, that it involved Ukraine or involved the United States was likely untrue. Again, you can see the New York Times reporting that the CIA had warned, had warned the German government of possible sabotage the pipeline for weeks beforehand, but that's not the same thing as the U.S. was involved. So again, I think that uh, the takeaway from all this is again that this is some politicians when confronted with a situation like this in which they have various incentives to lie, to not offend people, to shift blame, they have a couple of plays in their playbook, and it sort of reveals something about who and what they are. In some cases, it's simply to say nothing or to say things like the investigation's ongoing, or we can't really comment on it, or we don't have enough evidence, or say generic things like it may have been sabotage. That seems to be the Western European playbook. You also have the Russian playbook, which is to absolutely just bold-faced lie about it. But then you have all of these kind of in-between options, which is like leaking information to the press, leaking credible information, leaking false information, sort of leaking vague evidence. But it also tells us who's out here doing accurate, believable reporting, because it's rare sometimes that you get broad media reports and then you get a definitive truth that you get to use to calibrate which outlets, which media sources are credible and which ones are kind of full of bunk. And it's interesting to see that a lot of legacy media outlets, again, the Washington Post, Der Spiegel, the New York Times, actually did good reporting on this, kind of nailing it. And a number of other sort of more sketchy outlets ended up really missing the boat. Anyway, guys, that's all I had. Hit subscribe as always. Thanks so much, guys. Remember to hit that subscribe button and, of course, become a member at combatvetnews.com. This is the best way to support me, keep me and the team independent, able to do this every single day, honestly, and speaking truth to power. Plus, you get access to uncensored combat footage, oftentimes sent to us straight from units on the front line. Huge thank you to our Colonel tier members at Combat Vet News, guys like Thomas Anderson, Dan Cochran, Jalen Gow, Officer Murley, Deborah Oppenheimer, as well as all of our Lieutenant tier members. We couldn't do this without you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.